But no matter how optimistic you are on hydro, you'll just never get there. Biomass could be huge. And there are those that argue this is the answer. We ought to get a new group of trees and cut them down and harvest it, make methane and so forth. And I can buy that in places where we got plenty of water, and the agriculture is okay. But we got an agriculture problem around the world. I just don't see the world running on biomass as the terawatt answer. Wind, beautiful. These days it's really economically competitive in many places, but there's just only so many places to harvest wind around the planet. You can get about a terawatt, maybe two, and then you're pretty well done. Wave and tide, pretty much the same argument. So these areas of possible answers, alternative energies that people talk about so much, when you put the terawatt challenge to it, and of course when you put the cost thing to it, they just don't add up either individually or, in my sense, in total to the sort of answer we need. Maybe that's all the possibilities we have, in which case we'll have to get used to it. I'm not satisfied. I want more. I want the new oil. Then, of course, there's where the big game is right now, in the fossil energy. But imagine fossil energy in the halfway into the middle of the century, and we're doing twice the amount that we're doing right now. We're doing it each and every year. You can't tell me you can put all that CO2 in the atmosphere. No matter where you are in this debate, I think we would all agree that's just ridiculous. You're going to have to stick the CO2 someplace. So sequestration, big issue. Can you do it? And it's not doing it just a little bit. You've got to do it for like 10 gigatons of carbon all around the planet, or you might as well not do it at all. I mean, you just put it down there, you don't get anything for it. We do it all in North America, and the rest of the world doesn't do it, it doesn't matter if we did it. You got to do it around, and how good do you have to do it? You have to stick it down there so less than 0.1% comes out per year, because it adds up in the atmosphere like a 100-year or more lifetime. You don't get any money for putting it down there. There's no good story. Oh, yeah, you can recover a little bit of extra oil, but that's just a little side game on the big issue. Is there any sequester answer that really works? I haven't seen one yet. Maybe there is one. We're going to have to look. And when you get this all done, can we afford it? You don't solve this problem unless it's cheap. And then this question, is there enough natural gas, cheaply producible, not only by mid-century, but even for the next decade or so, for us to rely on that? Yes, there's vast hydrates deposits, we imagine, but it isn't the way that it's efficient to produce it. It's a solid. You got to go get it. You got to pick it up, or you've got to heat it up and make the gas bubble up, and oh, you better not let that methane bubble up into the atmosphere. It's worth greenhouse gas and CO2. Not clear that there is enough natural gas. Coal, it's actually not clear that there is enough coal that's really efficiently, cheaply producible under acceptable environmental cost, and coal is not just carbon, it's got all sorts of other things with it. You got to worry. Can you effectively do it? Can you sequester the CO2? Can you do it in cost? Big question. I think the flat-out answer is no, but we'll let the future determine. Interestingly, when you look for terawatts, all the other answers are nuclear, one way or another. That's, nuclear energies are 1 million times or so chemical energies, no big surprise. So there's fission, fusion, geothermal. The heat underneath our feet is sustained by spontaneous fissioning of uranium and potassium and thorium, radioactive isotopes that came when the Earth was made. If you go down under your feet, about as far up above as airplanes fly, except when they're landing here, the temperature is like 200, 300 degrees centigrade. If you move fluid down there and take it up and exchange it, you can mine the heat of the Earth, and there is vast heat sources there. And then, interestingly, all the rest is this little lunatic thing that when you say it to people in the real energy industry in Houston, they just smile at you. You say solar and look at their face, and they'll just smile. But solar is, of course, a nuclear energy source, and it's good to remind yourself of that. I mean, here is a nuclear reactor. This is a fusion reactor. It's gone through billions of years of shakedown trials. It is a monster. I notice it's showing green today for some reason. This is a picture of the sun seen by the SOHO satellite. It's staring right at it in extreme ultraviolet. This isn't the photosphere. This is the hot plasma on the outside. That's the Earth's real scale up there. This is a monster reactor. You don't want to get close to it. We're far enough away from it that we're We're insulated from some of the effects, and then we have the magnetosphere, we have the atmosphere, we have the ozone layer, and we've learned to get used to this thing. And it's going to be there for billions of years. This, if you like nuclear, and you like nuclear fusion, you love the sun. And every day, even though vast amounts of the solar energy go someplace else, 165,000 terawatts hit the Earth every moment. We only need 20 to completely solve the world's energy needs. If we turn 20 terawatts of power into 20 terawatts of electricity, oh, maybe we do it with 10% efficiency, maybe I need 200 terawatts of power. I mean, it's still peanuts compared to what hits the Earth every day. This is a vast energy source. We just don't know how to get it cheaply yet. Now, we won't do it this way, but this is very instructive. If you collected solar energy with just 6 solar plots in the western deserts of the U.S. and around the world. One thing we've got on this planet are deserts, and in most of these deserts there is nothing happening there. That real estate is available. With this cross-sectional area shown on this map and 10% efficiency, you would generate 20 terawatts of electrical power. That solves the problem. For 10 billion people, that's 2 kilowatts per person. That's all you need. Probably more than you need. Probably a factor of 4 more than you really need. You solve the problem. This is a solvable problem with just one source. Of course, we couldn't do this right now without just taking all the money in the world and building these solar sods. And by the way, what do we do when the night comes? You know, and it's dark. And I don't want the energy here. I want it someplace else. How do I get it from here to there? How do I make things work? So I've done a lot of thinking about this, trying to think of some scheme for energy around the planet that actually makes sense technologically and economically, that, you know, up to this terawatt challenge that we have. And this is one notion that makes sense to me, and we're talking about it. And there's no doubt 3 or 4 other possibilities, but just think of this one. I call this the distributed store-gen grid. In the year 2050, instead of transporting energy by putting stuff in a boat or a train and moving it, like we do now with oil and gas, you transport energy as energy by wire. And you do that with a grid of electrical connection. And unlike Buckminster Fuller used to argue where we'd interconnect the entire planet, one gigantic grid, I think it's adequate to just do it for a continent. It's adequate to do it for a continent that on that continent there is enough primary energy hitting the continent, time average, to handle the needs of the continent. And then you collect it, however, solar, wind, clean coal, nuclear up in somebody else's backyard behind some fence someplace, you pick it, you put it on the grid as electrical power, and it moves to wherever you're going to use it. And interconnected in this grid are hundreds of millions of local sites. And local here could vary from being your son's bedroom to your house to a group of houses to a business to a group of businesses, maybe in some cases a small town, might even be a traditional electrical utility locally. That's local. But critically, for that local site, not only is there local generation, which in the end I don't think is nearly as important as local storage. You have locally the equivalent of an uninterruptible power supply. And it gives you a buffer from whatever's happening on the grid for a time period that you yourself, for your own local reasons, determine how long you want it to be. A minute, an hour, a day, 2 days, a week. But you've solved the problem by definition of storage where you need it for your own. And it's a little problem that you solve because you can make local be little. And if you make a mistake in choosing the technology for storage, you've made a little mistake. Maybe it's a $10,000 or $100,000 mistake. And a couple years later, you find it's a mistake, and you go off to Sears or wherever you buy a new answer. It's not a life-changing, company-killing, $10 billion mistake that will take 20 years for the investor to pay back, and there's just no way you can guarantee the investors that 20 years from now it's going to be the best storage technology. It's a little thing. And that by virtue of being little and being local, it allows technological innovation, free markets, to keep on innovating what that answer is. We don't have to change the whole system. We don't have to to mothball a $10 billion investment in a single place. We just, it's like our computers. We just throw them away. If nobody wants to buy them, buy another one. Okay, we made a bad mistake, but we'll get over it. If you can solve the local problem of storage, you basically solve the whole problem, because by definition, the storage you need is local. And you connect it to this grid. The grid could actually be pretty unreliable, because you generate your own electricity from that local storage for some time. Maybe it's a flywheel. You just spin it up and you spin it back down again, and you just go electrical, mechanical, and back to electrical. Maybe it's a battery. Maybe it's a flow cell, flow battery. Maybe you generate hydrogen, you store it, and you regenerate. You generate your own electricity. You determine what quality is. You determine what buffer, what number of hours a day that and you buy it. You put it in your house, or and allows the electrical grid to be incredibly robust. Then, because if the grid drops out, big deal. You're okay for a while, and allows technological innovation to keep on changing. This most important enterprise of humankind, the energy business, to keep on running it. And critically, it allows anybody to play who's making primary power. You just put your power on the grid, and then all electrical power is equivalent. And you can avoid having to build. Right now, we have almost twice as much generating capacity as we use on average, because we have to take care of the peaking. Almost twice of the capex that we really need is in there just to take care of it. Well, that gets solved. They put that only in the storage technology. So your existing power plants, gas, coal-fired, nuclear, new wind farms, and most importantly, I believe, solar. Now you can do it. And you buy the energy off the electrical grid when it's cheap. It can be really cheap because you got to dump all this energy. You got terawatts of power moving onto the grid. That's the biggest problem with renewable energies in general, and solar and wind in particular, is it's episodic. It's not dispatchable. You've got to have storage. Either you do it locally and we're making these little mistakes, or you do it in big, vast storage areas where you make big mistakes. I like the little mistakes better than big mistakes, because we can keep on correcting for it. Critically is that now everybody can play. And so you don't have to completely mothball old technology as you go from one to another. No question, hydrogen has to replace gasoline as a transportation fuel. But it's only a carrier, and it's only used for transportation in a place that makes sense. It's not, you're never going to be able to move hydrogen across the seas like we're going to move liquid methane and anywhere near that efficiency. It's just not dense enough. Okay, so to enable this, so that's a great idea, but okay, I go to Sears, there aren't the storage technologies to buy. And maybe I can get a couple minutes, maybe 10 minutes, for my uninterruptible power supply for the house, but I don't have technologies now to give me an hour, let alone a day, for even a house, let alone a business. Where are those technologies going to come from? There have to be, and it's remarkable how often this is true, just down the line, whether it's primary power or transmission or storage, between where we are right now and where we need to get, there are something like 10 miracles that need to happen. I mean, really fundamental breakthroughs that are just shocking. The good news is that miracles do happen. I've lived in the physical sciences for 30 years. I've seen many of these happen: lasers, superconductors, all of microelectronics. This thing, it keeps on going on Moore's curve time and time again. Just miraculous discovery. I was driving with Roger Anderson in his car, and there's this GPS thing that's showing us exactly where we were. If I got in that car 10 years ago and looked at it, I said, what the heck is going on? These miracles do happen. But they happen, if they're really miraculous, they don't come generally because you know what the miracle is going to be, and you launch this big engineering program and say, okay, we're going to go there. Almost by definition, that's not a miracle. They happen from a broader enterprise. And you've got to step back and think about what is the enterprise that generates those miracles. And one thing I feel very confident of, that enterprise is the physical sciences and engineering. I don't think we're going to do this by revising the genome of plants. We might. But by and large answer for all of this stuff is the physical sciences and engineering. That's the switch that we need to turn on. I have a whole list of things that we could do. Photovoltaics, photocatalytic reductions of CO2 to make some liquid fuel, splitting water directly to make hydrogen. We need to have miraculous development of these things so that their cost drops, for amount of energy they produce by a factor of 10 to 100. That's not an evolution, that's a revolution, a miracle. Fuel cells, they work now, but they just are too expensive, and there's too much platinum in them for us ever to replace the automobile engine.